All right, so I've got about an hour before I have to be at the doctor's office, and I woke up a few minutes ago and noticed that the reason that ChatGPT went last night is because they made a major upgrade to it, and I can see by all the different things that are on here that it was a substantial upgrade. But with that said, uh, I kind of had a little trouble coming to an exact script today. Yesterday was a disaster, obviously. But something kept coming to my mind about yesterday and all the crappy things that happened to me at work. I just remember that one guy, and I think about the way that I didn't really talk to him in person. He just messaged me that most likely he wouldn't be there tomorrow. And I thought about the way that he put it, the long hours that this guy works, and how everyone is disposable. And of course, that came up, and one of the video ideas that I got this morning, which was titled "Big Tech Doesn't Want You Anymore," and it. I feel it every single day at work. I work in tech, and I feel the message of this video loud and clear because this is what I wrote for my monologue. By encouraging frequent departures, Amazon avoids giving raises or promotions while maintaining a fresh pipeline of desperate workers. Turnover also reduces unionization efforts. I've never heard that word before, as new employees lack the time or stability to organize effectively. Any type of worker general strike, any time that workers feel like they're being oppressed and exploited beyond the normal levels of exploitation that we've all come to love and embrace, that corporations don't like that. Anytime a worker's going to get ahead, a corporation's going to be there to put its foot on your neck, because having employees getting ahead means that there's less profits for the people that matter. It doesn't matter if you can't survive on what the corporation pays you, because as my coworker has said many times, your financial problems are not the problems of the corporation. I find that hard to believe, since they're the ones that determine that you're going to live in a state of constant panic and depression because of what you get paid, and because you're constantly tired. You don't really have time to actively look for a better job. I've been looking for a job now for more than 3 months. I know people that have been looking for work for 6 months. There's nothing out there except for crap jobs at a crap wage, at a crap place, in a toxic environment with no job stability. None whatsoever. And so while I was reading through the script that I produced from this video, I thought, this is exactly what I feel is happening at my job too. Once we got new management, once they ousted the person in charge about 2 months ago to the day, and suddenly they don't work here anymore. And it was just that. Just one day, they just pushed her out of the way, and then suddenly things started to change very rapidly. And there are hundreds of people now. I mean, it's at least 20% of the workforce was demolished within a very short time. I mean, it's gotten to the point where I see people, the look in their eyes is like, I know I need to find another job, but I'm scared of losing this job, which is what are you supposed to do in that situation? But let's get into this article. It's based on Amazon, but I'm just going to use Evil Corp in place of everywhere where it says Amazon, because um, it's not about them, it's about the system in general. So here we go. You ever hear about Evil Corp's turnover rate, which is 150%? That means for every 100 people who start working there, 150 leave within a year. Sounds impossible, right? No, it's not just a mistake, it's their business model. You think 150 people leaving a year's a lot? We have 1,000 people leaving every single year for the last 3 years. 1,000. That's almost It's more than half of the workforce that leaves every single year since I've been there. And I know every single one of them because it's my job to know. So, you see, the executives and his crew believe workers like me lazy if we stick around too long. They think we're more efficient if we're desperate, replaceable, and just temporary enough to never demand better. This is absolutely true. The more desperation you have among your workers, the more likely they are to stick around until they get fired. I know, I live that daily reality right now myself, is that you don't know when the end is going to come. You live paycheck to paycheck, but you have no security over that paycheck. In fact, the most likely scenario is that you will lose your job at a point in which you can't afford to lose your job. And finding a new one right now in this economy, every time I watch the Epic Economists, I get scared even more because I have seen this. I've seen them close the grocery stores. Last night, he did a video on grocery store closures and mergers, and it's obvious. You just drive your car into Mesa and you can see all the places that used to be Kroger's and Walmart's and Albertsons and Safeways and Bashes. They're all gone. And that's not because they weren't making money, they just weren't making enough money. So when a business in a bad part of town isn't making enough money, they just close it. Just like with any corporation, anything that's not generating income for them, they're going to get rid of it because that's what business is. Either you generate record profits or you do not do business there. What does that mean? It means that areas that would normally have a giant grocery store in them, well, the people around there are too poor and the corporation doesn't want to run a store in a poor neighborhood. And what I noticed after the pandemic is they started putting up safety glass to protect their property, even in places where you would think that they wouldn't do that, like the Walmart down on Baseline and like 24th Street. It's kind of in a relatively nice area, but because they're poor people, they started putting up that safety glass. There are entire aisles in that Walmart that are covered in safety glass, and it's just something to see. You wouldn't think that in our day and age that corporations would make the store so unappealing because rich people don't shop at Walmart. Walmart is a notorious store. It's a poor people store. And even poor people, I feel like, are starting to avoid shopping there because of the way that they feel about people, whether it's their customers or their employees, because for the most part, their customers and their employees are the same thing. They're the most desperate workers and desperate consumers in our society. So, moving on. Think about it. Every time someone quits, that's one less raise Amazon has to pay, one less health benefit, one less retirement plan. Turnover isn't a bug, it's their way of keeping costs low and profits high. I absolutely agree. It's when it comes to people, people have no value to the corporation or the government, in fact, because if you look at the way that our society is structured, it's only structured to allow rich people to win. Everyone else is a bona fide loser. The moment you're conceived inside the womb of Susie Rottencrotch, you have become a loser. No matter what you do in order to stop being a loser, if you're not rich, the second you're conceived, you are going to live a life of suffering, misery, and debt for the rest of your life until you go kicking and screaming into the pine box because you're not going to get to rest. You think that getting to retirement means that you're going to stop working? No, it just means you're going to be old and you're going to be working. There is no escape from this system because it was designed that way. And I personally don't think that this system's working. And until people realize that these executive types don't have any interest in in normal life, in ordinary people, that you're doomed until the proletariat decides it's time to stand up. Because laying on your back and getting kicked in the nards all day long by Evil Corp is what they want. They don't want to provide you dignity. They want to humiliate you, exploit you, and make certain that you feel bad every single day. That's the conclusion that I've come to. Evil Corp needs its workers to feel bad all of the time. And the mental health crisis caused by the feeling bad caused by corporations is something that we've tried to normalize. Or if you're a regular proletariat man or woman, and I see this every day, you're sitting in your car at a red light and you look over and someone's just like singing along with the song in their car. And you're like, oh my God, I can't stand that. I can't stand people trying to turn off the logical part of their brains that tell them, oh my God, my circumstances are dire. I don't make enough money to feed myself. I don't make enough money to pay the rent. I don't make enough money to pay for the car that takes me to the plantation. And yet there you are, just tuning out completely reality in order for you to find some peace of mind in a nightmarish day at a place you don't want to be for an amount of money that's not livable. It boggles my mind to know that music does that to people. Like somehow, and I watched this as a child too. I watched this in my mom. My mom was a cleaning lady. And because she didn't have money for childcare, we often had to go with her to her cleaning jobs. And we would just sit on this rich person's couch all day and we would watch television. But in the background was that music playing, and you had a proletariat woman pretending like nothing was wrong. Everything was okay as long as there's music. Sometimes that involves alcohol for recreation, and maybe even pro ball is part of the stimulation that the proletariat needs in order to not think about the consequences of inaction. That's really what it comes down to, is inaction on the part of the proletariat, assuming, like this script says over and over again, that maybe things will get better. I assure you, there is no profit in things getting better for poor people. The working class is strictly labor. Your entertainment, your fun, your enjoyment of life isn't included in your life package. What's included in your life package as a proletariat person is no vacations, deep sadness, loneliness, humiliation, exploitation, and every other negative thing that can possibly happen. Choosing not to look at the world through the eyes of a pessimist is a losing strategy for the proletariat, because this means that there will never be a movement in order to progress things in a society that need to go in a different way. Healthcare, number one thing that needs to change in our society, along with wages, affordable housing, food as a basic human right, because every single day I see a new article that food is going up. And just because food's going up in price doesn't mean the quality is going to go up. In fact, I would say that the quality of overall everything in our life is going down, including our relationships with other people. Because no one likes being around poor people. Poor people don't like being around poor people. I don't like proletariat people. They're depressing to look at. Just look at your average poor person. They're unattractive, they're overweight, and somehow that same person I will see every day at the gym singing along or humming a tune while they're listening to their to their music on their phone, and you're just kind of like, I was actually going to say iPod. We haven't had iPods now in so long that it's like a thing of the past, right? You know, iPods and deep relationships, a savings account, owning your own home or owning a car. All of these things don't exist anymore, but we remember them, right? You remember iPods. We remember growing up in the late 80s, and things were different. There wasn't so much despair in the air. That wasn't meant to rhyme, but sometimes these things happen. So there's so much pain and suffering out there that's been engineered into our society because people are saying this is okay. We keep telling ourselves this is a phase. Why do you think we voted for that Cheeto man in the White House? Because people were like, well, if we just get this guy in, things will get better for us. No, you, America, I don't even know what to say. Like, I'm really, I'm just gonna keep reading because I going down that path is just not something I want to say. It's just not going to be ad friendly. You know what hurts most? They don't just grind you down. They make you think you're the problem. Can't handle the pressure. Maybe you're not cut out for it. And they say it with a smile, like we're doing you a favor. I had no idea that that was the next part of the script. I usually just look it over. But yes, Evil Corp does you with a smile. And they're doing you a favor. As I told you guys last week, remember, that evil business owner thinks they're doing you a favor by giving you employment. A job is a privilege. Remember that, proletariat people. A job is a privilege. You have the privilege to not be able to afford to pay your bills. You have the privilege to live in a danky, crappy apartment like I do. And you have the privilege to have to shack up with the person you're not physically attracted to, has the personality of an angry mule, and treats you like garbage because you need to split the rent with someone. And that's the only person that would split the rent with you. Sometimes our garbage, disgusting relationships, both friendships and relationships, are nothing but a coping mechanism for a world that's broken beyond belief. Or as Scooter would say from the Borderlands game, more broken than your mama's lady parts. That's what I would say. But moving on to our next talking point here. They track your every move, how fast you pack, how many seconds you take to breathe, and if you can't keep up, out the door you go. Because guess what? There's always someone hungrier, someone more desperate to take your spot. That is something that I would have never put together myself. There's always someone hungrier than you are to take a spot. That's something that I always felt while I worked at Walmart. And the entire tenure at Walmart, they were always looking to see if they could find someone that would work a little harder, would complain a little less, and would take it without complaining that it hurts. In fact, that's my current job. My boss hates it when I complain about the low wages and the crappy hours and the overall environment at Evil Corp. He just absolutely just looks at me and just like, I don't want to hear it today, Millennial Steam. And I'm like, you know what? It's not getting any better. In fact, yesterday when I was denied taking time off, I was just like sitting there thinking to myself, wow, this is really happening, huh? That's what I thought to myself. This is really happening, and I just looked over at my coworker, and he's like, "Yeah, that's happening because they've gotten rid of so many people, and a lot more people are on their chopping block than you wouldn't believe." I actually had a woman who came in to my office yesterday and went on a 15-minute rant about how she didn't know how she was going to do the return to office because the mandate is official. Every person that lives close enough to the corporation, and close is a arbitrary number, because she told me, it's like, Millennial Steam, I asked the corporation 3 years ago when I bought my house if I was ever going to be forced to come into work every day, and they said no. Now it's back in the office 4 days a week, mandatory. And as she said, I live closer to California than I do to Evil Corp. And she's going to have to drive 2.5 hours every day in order to get to work. And she just was looking at me like, I don't know what I'm going to do. You know what you're going to do? You're going to sell your house. Because unless you want to drive 5 hours every day to work, you're not going to make that commute. And again, why? Because Evil Corp says so. Because Evil Corp dictates the way you're going to live, the where you're going to live, who you're going to live with, and what you're not going to eat for dinner tonight. Because like with everything else in life, you're not supposed to enjoy anything that you do. Misery has become normalized to the point where they're going to smile at you and uh, and tell you they're doing you a favor by keeping you miserable.